we get in this need for perfection that stops us from actually taking action. So you just have to start. Recognizing that I can't do it all has been a really impactful understanding for me, because otherwise the to-do list would just be out of hand. Just that understanding that I can't do it
Right.
all. And I really can't do it all if I'm not taking care of myself.
My guest today is a hypnotherapist, a master Pilates instructor, and a trauma-informed master coach. In 2016, she and her husband, Les, they founded the Mindful Movement, and that involves a YouTube channel that has more than 900,000 subscribers. Pretty impressive. There's also a Mindful Movement podcast. She's also a brand new author, and it's so thrilling for me to be talking to Sara Raymond. There she is. Hi, Sara.
Hi, thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm excited to get to chat with you.
Yeah, and I think so. I didn't realize how long you've been around. You started the Mindful Movement in 2016, and I went to your YouTube channel, and the videos go back about 8 years, because it was right around that time that I started doing affirmations. I've been on YouTube since 2006, for long, like almost 19 years now. But I
Wow.
started getting into the affirmation space late 2016 when I was seeking out things like meditations and affirmations. I think that's when I first discovered you. So tell me about that. Were you surprised by the growth of your channel as it's grown over the years?
Absolutely. I often will tell the story of how the YouTube channel got started, and I have to give my son credit for the idea. He was 10 at the time, and he said, "Mom, you need to use YouTube to share your recordings," because I was doing it very low tech, and I had used Dropbox to share my recordings with people that I was working with. And he said, "You need to be on YouTube." So he sat me down and he showed me how to use iMovie, and he showed me how to upload the recordings. And that was the start of the whole thing. And I had no intention really of it being what it is today.
Yeah, same here. I never saw that my channel would grow to, when I started doing affirmations, it was like 3,600 subscribers. And then, yeah, little by little it grew, especially during COVID. I imagine during the pandemic, you probably grew a lot. And then,
Absolutely.
but wow, that's amazing. So on your website, there's a line there that says, "We have both," meaning you and your husband, Les, "we have both experienced profound growth and fulfillment in the living a mindful lifestyle." So I have a feeling there's a story. I'm always fascinated by people that get involved in a certain endeavor, certain fields. There's always a personal story about what led them to do that. And I have a feeling there's probably one that you can share. Like, how did you get involved in this whole topic and lifestyle?
I started in really more the movement field. I taught Pilates. Really, it's been about 20 years of teaching Pilates. And that was my entrance into paying attention to my own experience and paying attention to my body. And then from there, I started to seek more understanding about myself. I found myself in a career and a life that I questioned if I made the choices to get to where I was. And that's really what led me to meditation and hypnosis and trying to understand myself a little bit better. So I wanted to know myself better, I guess.
And was it a challenge you were trying to overcome? Was it just a general sense of wanting to better yourself? Because quite often people are drawn into things when there's a crisis or they're going through something, a struggle, and they're seeking a solution for it. Those are more like pain-motivated aspirations where some people just want to they're doing great. They just want to live a better life. Which one was it? Or was it a combination of both for you?
I would say a little bit of a combination of both, but primarily I just felt unfulfilled or unsatisfied, or like all the aspects of my life felt like they should have me feeling happier or more fulfilled. And I just wasn't. I was always seeking more and always looking for the next training or the next education, or there was a lot of comparison and judgment and just general lack of satisfaction.
Yeah. And that's really common. On paper, people get the job or the career, the house, the car, and all that stuff. And then they end up going, is that all there is? And I understand that. Yeah, you're seeking the truth. You're seeking more. But more and more over the years, I'm going like, I actually want to hang out with finders. People that are not just constantly seeking, but every now and then find something that they can use. Did you eventually find what you were looking for through this personal work?
Yes and no. I think I would put myself in the category of seeker, but I also think that I've come to a state of contentment with my life and a deeper level of satisfaction and fulfillment, which has allowed me to have less striving and urgency around the next training or the next thing.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I'm like accepting what is. I think a lot of the dissatisfaction in life is having an expectation of or expecting something or someone to behave a certain way or a certain thing that you pursue to roll out in a certain way and it doesn't, and you're frustrated. Doesn't Byron Katie, I think, have a book called Loving What Is? And maybe that's part of mindfulness. Actually, there's segues into the next question. But like, how do you define mindfulness? I think, was it John Kabat-Zinn? Was he one of the fathers or the first people that talked about mindfulness? I'm not sure the
Yeah, I
history there.
believe so. I believe he was one of the folks that brought it to the United States in particular, because I believe it's been around for a long time and maybe it was more of a Buddhist practice. And
Yeah.
I don't know that it was always called mindfulness per se, but
Yeah. Well, it resonated with you enough to where you call your, and I love the alliteration, the mindfulness movement or the mindful movement,
Yeah.
I should say. But to you, what is mindfulness? What does being mindful mean?
yeah. I think being mindful is being aware, it's being present, it's just being in what is reality, what is true for you in each moment.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I think most of us are not fully present, whether it's when we're with people, we're on our phones, or whether we're in nature, instead of enjoying the beauty around me, we're thinking about things. And so definitely it seems to be a recurring theme in spiritual practices is to be present. Certainly Eckhart Tolle, the power of now, right? Being fully present
Right.
in the moment. But sometimes I think people can demonize looking in the past and looking in the future. Like they always say, oh, you're worrying about the past or you're anxious about the future. And a lot of people do feel that way. I know for me, sometimes I'll look back at the past and I'll feel proud. It'll remind me of a sweet memory that actually empowers me. Looking to the future, most of the things that I've created in my life, the YouTube channel, the books I published, and so on, started off as ideas in my mind where I was visualizing the future. So I don't think there's necessarily good or bad about thinking ahead, looking back. It's just the way you process it. Because you can be mindful about looking forward, looking back too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think there is a place for learning from the past, for using the past to find data points that remind you that you've come so far. And then you do have to look at the future to change your future, to have a part in manifesting the future that you desire. So I don't think that it's wrong in any way.
Right.
I also think that we can go too far in either of those directions. And then if we're only living in the past, it might create some level of depression. And if we're only living in the future, it might create some level of anxiety.
Especially those people that talk about their glory days. Oh, my best days are behind me. It all depends how you process it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you started as a Pilates instructor and now you're a hypnotherapist. Maybe I'll ask you what a trauma-informed master coach is. But if you had to sum up these days, like how you help people, like do you have a specialty area that my husband and I are best suited to help people doing X, Y, and Z or in a particular situation in life? How would you sum that up?
That's a tough question to sum it up because I am a multi-passionate person.
Guilty here too, yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that what I bring to all of the aspects of what I do, whether it's teaching people movement or working on emotional or physical healing through hypnotherapy or coaching, it's really a compassionate, safe place for people to heal. I know that's very vague, but maybe helping them find the tools that they have within themselves and the answers, the wisdom, if you will, within themselves to evolve the way they want to evolve.
Sure. I would imagine it ties into that. I've never heard the term trauma-informed coach. Can you explain what that means or where that term came from?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely an official title. Maybe not an official title, but I did not come up with it.
Okay.
I think that someone who has experienced trauma, they have maybe everyone has experienced trauma in some capacity, but there are certain things that happen in the body, in the nervous system, reactions that you might have that are unique to trauma that is important to have an understanding of as a coach, so that I have the compassion and I have the trustworthy, safe space to be able to hold someone through their evolution, through their coaching process or the healing process that I think is really important to recognize.
You have to be very empathetic for sure to be able
Yes,
to.
absolutely.
And that's why actually having gone through, I know a lot of people that are in the healing world had a lot of challenges and had to overcome things themselves. They didn't live the perfect life leading up to this
Right.
point. And it puts you in a better position to be sensitive to what other people are going through, even though you may have overcome it yourself. Let me talk about a little bit about the growth of the YouTube channel again and like your overall activities. We're going to talk about the new book, and then we're going to shift into, I do want to ask you about some business related things because I have a lot of purpose driven creators and creative entrepreneurs out there that are part of my audience. And I just love talking this stuff too. But so I assume before you started YouTube, was most of your activity like geographically based? Like you were mainly doing local events and maybe didn't, I don't know if you had much or any of an online presence prior to starting YouTube. Is that safe to say?
That is absolutely true. Yeah. The studio that I run here in Maryland, we've been open for 20 years. So that was and before that, I was a kindergarten teacher. So that was all very local, just in the classroom. But then with the Pilates studio is all in person work. And the YouTube channel was meant to really just be a sort of a side passion where I could offer recordings to people that I was working with in person initially.
Yeah. So this is a studio that you actually own it and run it and still to this day, right? Wow,
Yep, to this day.
that's pretty impressive. Yeah, luckily, I embraced the internet back in the '90s, and I just love the idea of being able to reach people without having to be physically present with them. It's
Yeah.
still most powerful if you're in the room with someone face to face, but the next best thing, yeah, with YouTube in particular, I love it.
Mm.
One of the reasons that I started doing affirmations myself actually was I was seeking out. I know you don't do affirmations per se. Well, you might have some. I think you mostly do meditations, guided meditations, if I'm not mistaken. But I was seeking out affirmations on YouTube 8 years ago. Found some good stuff like Jason Stevenson. We talked. I interviewed him recently. He's got a great voice. Jess Shepard, also from Australia, is another one who I like. But a lot of people I would come across, I was like, oh, I don't like the sound of their voice, or the music was too loud, or something. So I started creating my own. So I'm very sensitive to the sound of someone's voice, and yours is very appealing. I assume you were doing guided meditations in your studio prior to YouTube, and did you get compliments on it, or did you feel, how confident were you in recording, putting that out into the world back then?
I was doing some guided meditation practices in the studio, but I don't know that I would have said I got compliments or that I was confident. It was really just an opportunity to share what I was offering in person with the people that I was offering it to. It really wasn't until more people found the practices online that I even understood that I was good at it, or that I had a voice that could be appreciated by listeners.
That's interesting.
I had no idea.
So, like I said, I work with a lot of people that I consider purpose-driven entrepreneurs or creators, not people just in traditional artistic fields, but people that, yeah, want to help folks. But quite often there's a hesitancy, like, oh my God, I don't want to put myself out there. They feel vulnerable. I assume you went through those same feelings because you said you didn't even necessarily had confidence. You didn't know anybody liked your voice really. What were those initial feelings of resistance to putting your stuff out into the world, and how did you overcome that, if so?
I think, like you said, everyone probably has some level of resistance to
Oh, yeah.
putting themselves out there. Even if they maybe come off as very confident, they probably have some level of doubt or insecurity. But for me, what I felt comfortable with initially was just putting my voice on YouTube. I didn't do anything direct to camera initially. I felt comfortable with the voice only. So that was the way that I entered into YouTube. And then eventually I did do some things on camera. I did some Pilates videos and some live guided meditation practices, but it's primarily voice. And I definitely found over the years, I was seeking ways to improve the quality of the recording, the quality of what I was offering. I mentioned before that there was always a what training is next, what education is next. So that happened with my YouTube journey as well. But I do think it helped me.
Yeah, I took a deep dive into, there are tons of channels on YouTube about how to grow and build a YouTube channel. I still listen to them periodically just to try to keep up on things. And then you start experimenting, putting things out there. And then so many people, though, they want to have everything perfect before they even take the first step. And I always say, just it's going to be messy at first. Give yourself permission to be messy, not to be perfect, and to learn along the way. And it sounds like you did that. And here you're approaching 1 million subscribers now. So that's amazing. Yeah. So I know this led to a lot of other opportunities. Let's talk about something that's very current. And you have a book. It just came out, right? It's already out and available. Is this your first book?
Yes, it was my first book, published in December of 24.
Congratulations. Welcome to the club. I've got a number of them under my belt too. Now, did you put this out, was it independently published or did you get a publisher?
No, it was self-published.
Awesome. That's 14 of my 16 books I put out myself. So I'm a big proponent of going the indie route. Yeah.
That's very impressive because it took me a really long time. And I'm sure you're well aware, a lot of effort and the energy went into the making of it. And I'm impressed with 16 under your belt. That is amazing.
Yeah, well, the first one came out in 93. So it's just like a 30 some odd year journey of putting them out. I'm overdue for another one. I want to get to 20, but I'm not done yet. But the book is called You Are Not Broken, A Compassionate Guide to Uncovering Inner Wisdom and Transforming Your Life with Hypnotherapy. So tell me, what motivated you to put it out? What's the book about? And how can people benefit from it?
What motivated me really was to be honored with the opportunity to work with individuals and watch their growth and evolution through the process that I guide them through. And really just the desire to want to help more people. I'm only one person and not everyone can afford or have the time to work with me individually. So to be able to put the book out there and give people the resources and the tools and the process that they might need to have some level of healing or transformation on their own really was the motivation behind it. So I hope that the book will be a resource for people to believe in themselves and have the tools that they need to go through this process and to grow and heal.
That's awesome. And you mentioned the word heal early on, which we talked about. I know we talked about the trauma-informed coach. You are not broken. So this definitely speaks to, it sounds like your audience and the people that you serve the most maybe feel like they're broken, they're faulty, right? And there's something wrong with them that I need to fix. And we both know that's not really true, for one, and it's not the most effective way to change, to improve your life. And so I guess the book is it's a way to reach people with your message. Now it says with hypnotherapy, is the book focused on using hypnotherapy techniques yourself?
Yes, it does use some hypnotherapy techniques. It draws from various methodology that I've been trained in. There's some parts work, there's some somatic work involved in that. And I think that it's just taking the parts or the pieces of the puzzle that have worked really well for me in my own journey, worked well for clients, some inner child healing, just options of ways to improve or to heal that I found very useful.
That's awesome. And this is available, what formats? Is it a physical paperback as well as an ebook, audiobook? What formats can people get it in?
It is a paperback available. It should also be available as an ebook. I haven't finished the audiobook yet, but that is hopefully going to be in the works soon.
So I got to ask you as a first-time author, because I remember, like, my first book came out in 1993. I remember that feeling of holding the physical representation of that book in my hands for the first time. So did you publish this through Amazon or KDP by any chance? Or
Well, it's available on Amazon, but the distributor that I used is different. It's not Amazon. I can't remember the
okay.
name of it now.
But they shipped you an initial, maybe it's a proof copy
Oh,
first
yeah.
before you ordered. Then you ordered maybe so many copies to sell in your store or in your yoga studio. What was that feeling of holding it in your hands for the first time?
It was pretty surreal, I
Mhm.
would say. It's been a work in progress for a very long time. So it really felt like a completion in a way.
Yeah. I held it in my hand. I went, oh my God. And at the time, I was publishing a local music newspaper, and it was my first book. It only existed on a computer screen prior to that. And I remember thinking, this is not the first book I'm ever going to put out. I'm going to put out a whole lot of books, and this is going to be my future. And here we are, 30 plus years later, and a lot more titles later. Hopefully, it's the first of many. If you're so inspired, that's great. Hopefully, people are responding to it, and you're getting some initial feedback. That's cool. You get a lot of feedback from your YouTube channel, and you have a podcast too related. It's
Right.
also the mindful movement, but it's just like more, I think of the arms of an octopus. It's like another way to reach people, right?
I think when you're a creative person, it's hard to stop the creativity once it starts flowing in a way. You think of all the different ways you can put content out there. And sometimes it can be a lot
Right.
if you're in that creative mode.
It's a great opportunity, but can be overwhelming at the same time. So you have to be mindful and find a balance, right?
Yeah.
So this is cool. So that's awesome. I'm going to be linking to your website and probably to Amazon too, where the book is available in the show notes and the description here. Let's segue into talking about the business aspect of what you do. We've established that prior to YouTube, you were already running a business because you had the physical location of your Pilates studio, which you probably had been doing for 12 years or whatever at that point when you started on YouTube, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But YouTube allowed you then to reach pretty much a worldwide audience. And I don't know how quickly the channel grew, but I'm assuming at some point, especially during the pandemic or COVID, it probably, like my channel, experienced growth. Before we get into the specifics, let me just ask you about your philosophy on business and monetizing your gifts. So you were already doing that with the studio, but some people in the spiritual or personal development have weird relationships with money. And so what's your philosophy or just your thoughts with you and your husband on turning what you do into a business and monetizing it?
YouTube is interesting because we're offering our services free to the consumer, but we're still able to make money on it. We're making a living. So to me, I feel if a consumer wants to listen to a guided meditation that I offer and they have to suffer through an ad before, that's worth it because it enables me to continue as a creator, continue making more content for them. Although sometimes I'm sure you're well aware, you probably get lots of comments and people like, why is there an ad here?
Yeah,
But
I know what you mean. Especially, you don't want it to play in the middle of it. I'm sure you don't have
of
any ads running in the
course.
middle, but at the beginning
No.
and the end's fair game. But yeah, so we
Yeah.
should point out that both of us are YouTube partners. That means we allow
Right.
YouTube to run ads on our videos, and they basically send the creator about half of whatever they collect from the advertiser. And with your numbers, it's probably, I know for me, it's probably the primary thing that pays the bills and supports our household. It might be the same. I don't know for you
Yeah.
too. So that's one way that you monetize it. You didn't have any guilt about that, I'm sure. Right.
No, I think that it it's empowering in a way because it does allow me to support my family and support myself financially and still offer content for free.
Right.
So to me, I feel very comfortable with it. I feel very good because it's a lot of free content
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the consumer.
Yeah. And even prior to me doing affirmations, like I said, I put out many books. My earliest books were on like music marketing and empowerment for authors and people in creative fields. My whole marketing plan from the beginning was to give away small chunks of things that I offered. In the early days of the internet, it was text based, like short blog posts and articles. When podcasting came around, it was audio and then video. I probably estimate that maybe 90 to 95% of everything I've created over the decades has been freely given away, but you hold some stuff back to sell and to support yourself. We're going to talk about you do coaching and online courses. I think you have a membership community. You have this background of already running a yoga studio, running a business, expenses and overhead. I'm sure you just didn't have free admission to everything. You charge things. So you were already used to that. Some people just getting into this maybe had day jobs or they're asking for money for the first time, which is that
Right.
discomfort. But you must have seen an opportunity when you had all this traffic from YouTube. We can direct some of this for the people who want to. They can get some upgraded access to you, perhaps.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I began offering for charging people for was I did a course. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember the exact date, but that was the first time I ever asked for payment for service in the mindful movement business. The other business, obviously, there was a lot happening there.
And in a digital format. Like, so you've been charging for your live events and things in Maryland, but this is the first thing that you offered. Did it go well?
It went okay. I think everyone's first time doing a live course has its challenges, but it actually went pretty well. And I think it was a good place for me to start at the time. That course has evolved over the years and become something bigger and different. Some of that content still available through Mindful Movement course.
But I think you have a number of different digital offerings, recordings.
Yeah.
So you have over the years, of course, you developed a whole suite of things. In addition to one of the things that being on the internet affords you is the ability to do some coaching for people that aren't physically present in your Maryland location. So that's part of your business too, right? Both you and your husband offer separate coaching opportunities.
Yes, he primarily works with folks in the movement realm, and I work with people in all different, whether it's mental health or professional development or confidence building, self-worth building. All of those aspects are a little more in my field house.
So you're more the mind, he's more the body, I guess you might say. Yeah. He's a little bit rock. You're a little country. He's a little bit rock and roll. If you remember Donnie and Marie, he may not be old enough. I don't know. Years ago. Anyway, so I guess you just, as an entrepreneur, you have this opportunity. You experiment, right? You try. So you said that your first course was your first digital offering online, and then I guess you added other things. And so over time, you find some things are working. You do what's been effective for you, or what's like if someone is aspiring to do the things that we do. What's like some general advice you would give about experimenting with these paid offerings?
I think trying something is where to start. That's very simple and general, but we get in this need for perfection that stops us from actually taking action. So you just have to start. I do also think that perhaps market research, if you will, like getting to know if what you believe is going to be an effective product, if your audience also agrees. Doing that before you start the creation of it instead of the other way around, where creating something and then trying to sell it without knowing if it's going to be received well by your audience could potentially cost you a lot of time.
Yeah, and I've heard with especially people that want to create a pre-recorded course, like a self-guided course with video lessons and all this. Before you do that, do like a live version of it where you get on Zoom and you present. First of all, if nobody signs up for the thing, then you don't have to create it at all. But even if you get a handful of people, you test it out. You do live Zoom calls, you record them. They could be the first maybe recorded pieces of that. And then if there's really a demand for it, then you can take your time to record professionally done videos and lessons and all that. But you're right. Yeah, don't spend 6 months creating something you're not sure if there's a market for it. How much of the work these days do you still do yourself? Have you guys grown a team? Do you have freelancers? Are you still pretty much doing it on your own? Just curious.
We actually had, we've reverted back to being just the two of us. We've reverted back to being small. I think in the digital world or the online business world, there's this pressure to do it all. Like you have to be on YouTube, you have to be on Instagram, you have to be on TikTok, you have to be on all the places, and you have to do all the things. And I think we did all of those things, and it took a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of help, experts and freelancers to help us. And what we found is that it didn't necessarily change the bottom line. It didn't change how successful we were. We've, over the last year or so, really backed down a little bit in terms of what we're putting out there and how much support we're seeking from freelancers or from people helping us.
It's a common story. I think people feel like they need to ramp things up. And you maybe have seen on YouTube last year or two, a lot of people are saying, I'm quitting YouTube, but there's this burnout theme that even with some prominent people, they build these teams and then maybe the market changes or whatever. And then they have this responsibility of all these mouths to feed and they just get burnt out and overwhelmed. So sometimes when I beat myself up about not having more people involved, there are some people that come to me and go, actually, you're smart to keep it as much in-house as possible. I got one or two people I work with, but that's actually plenty for me. So for folks, if you're listening, don't use that as an excuse. You don't need a big team to get stuff done.
I would agree with that. 100%. I would agree. Yeah.
That's awesome. There's another thing I want to ask you, Sara. So I know your the mindful movement, your guided meditations, you have such a soothing voice. Here now meeting you and doing this interview with you, you're pretty like laid back, easygoing person. Some people think that when you have to be in business, like you have to be type A, you got to be extroverted and all that. But how do you, even though you seem to have that demeanor, I know that's just what I'm reading you here in this interview, you still manage to get stuff done. So how would you describe your persona and how you use who you are to build a business and make an impact without having to be that type A type of person?
I think I probably have some aspects of type A. I am fairly chill or laid back, I would say, but I do like to have order and I do like to have control as much as is available, right? We don't really have as much control as we think we do.
Right.
But I like to get things done. I like to keep sort of order and tidiness about what I do. But like I said, I think recognizing that I can't do it all has been a really impactful understanding for me, because otherwise the to-do list would just be out of hand and it would become extremely overwhelming. And I definitely have had my moments of overwhelm over the years as actually multiple business owner. Just that understanding that I can't do it all. Right. And I really can't do it all if I'm not taking care of myself.
So self-care is important, and allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to let a few things drop. Yeah. I have my ideal, like I have a list of the ideal week. I would be posting all the stuff and doing X number of things. And I don't think I ever, maybe in the course of a year, maybe I have 1 week like that. But the rest of the week, you have your priorities. You get what's the most important stuff done. If other things fall through the cracks, just let it. It's okay. And you could still make an impact. You can still do amazing things even with that. This is a couple of questions I like to ask all of the people that I interview. Part one is, what are the best parts of what you do? What is the most exciting thing about this whole mindful movement thing that you have created over the years?
I love working with clients and getting to hear their stories and help them to connect the dots of how the past is impacting their present life, and seeing those aha moments where they realize that they have the answer that they need, or they have a moment where they can see their life from a slightly different perspective and see an opportunity to change. And then sometimes even just looking at the comments on the YouTube channel can be really empowering and inspiring for me when I see that I'm helping people just by making a recording.
I think I have around half of the subscribers, or less than half. I think that not that we're in a comparison game, but I know I get dozens of the comments. There's YouTube comments, there's people, and I'm in multiple places too. So I get feedback through Instagram and through the podcast and various ways. And I do read those. I rarely get any negative comments, thankfully. But yeah, I read those, and it's fuel it gives me purpose and meaning. And it's a reflection that I'm doing good in the world. I'm sure you get that same kind of thing for sure. Right?
Absolutely.
It keeps you going.
Definitely. Yes, motivating and inspiring, and it's validating in some capacity.
Absolutely. And then on the opposite side of that, and we touched on a little bit of that, but what are some of the most challenging aspects of what you do. It's the
Mm,
yin and yang in life, right? So
sure,
what are
sure.
some of those challenging things you go through?
One of the biggest challenges that I think I have, this is really in my other business, the Pilates studio, is working with employees. I love them and they're wonderful and they help run the business. But at the same time, it's like this really heavy responsibility that I feel for their well being and their livelihood. And I think that when I started the second business, it really was important to me to not have employees for that reason. But then I think with the mindful movement, I would say working with my husband has been a challenge. And it's also been a huge opportunity for growth for the both of us and how we communicate with each other and how we interact. So it's been a challenge at times, but it's also been really a beautiful evolution for our relationship. And you work with your spouse too. So I imagine
Absolutely,
you
yeah. We've been
have
together for
similar.
over 19 years. Actually, we only got married like 2 years ago, but we've been together and
Oh,
living
okay.
together that entire time. And I have my affirmation things, like my thing. I have some things that I do exclusively. She has her own thing. She does healthcare with women and drumming circles and things like that. But then we do have these things
Yeah.
that we do together, and we both work from home too. So we spend there's a lot of time around each other. But yeah, it is. There are challenging moments, but there's always beautiful things too, though, when you create something with someone special like that. So I totally get it. It's not just one shade. Many shades of gray there. And then for people watching here that they might be into meditation or yoga or something. Maybe they're in the healing arts or they just have some aspiration to help people. What's some advice that you would have that maybe somebody isn't really active online yet? They've just been doing this locally and they want to do something bigger with YouTube or some
Mhm.
in some other way. Just what's some general advice you would give folks?
Do it because you love it, not because someone else is doing it. And maybe listen to your own wisdom or confidence in how you do what you do that makes you unique and special, and stick with that rather than trying to do it like someone else is already doing it.
Yeah, that's great. And also a lot of people go, "Why should I do this? There are already people out there doing that." But no one approaches it like you do, and you find your own unique way of doing. What's that unique spin that you put on that? That's a reflection of who you are, and that
Right.
cannot be duplicated, regardless of how many people are still doing it. And I'm curious, and I assume meditation is it's a practice that's been part of your life. I know I have to admit, with affirmations and meditation, I'm in and out of it. I don't necessarily do it every day, but I try to as often as I can. But do you still continue to use meditation in your personal life? And
I do. I think weirdly enough, it has in some way become a job. So if I sit down to practice meditation, it becomes a little bit of a brainstorming session. Or if I listen to a guide, there's some level of, oh, I would do it this way, or
oh yeah,
it takes my mind off into the creative realm. I have had to find practices that nourish me in a different way. So there's a lot of time outside in nature, or I've done a lot of somatic based work where it's a way for me to get out of my mind and the thinking and really get into the body and what I'm noticing and experiencing in my body and my emotions and
yeah,
sensations. So it's evolved, I would say.
yeah. And I know with me too, since I do affirmations and I've just been immersed in it for 8 years, like doing them myself. I still do them. Sometimes I'll even listen to my own recordings if I want something specific, but then I'll seek out other people online. But what I like to think, or my way I justify maybe not doing it every day, is that it's like I'm creating this stuff, even though I'm recording it for other people, I'm still saying those things and absorbing it. So I think I'm still benefiting from the creating and the sharing of it. It has to impact my life in that way too. And then, oh, also just one quick question I meant to ask earlier. Who inspires you? Are there people that you, authors, speakers, spiritual teachers, whatever, that you've looked up to
Mm.
and been inspired by over the years? Yeah, where do you turn for inspiration for yourself?
I would say there's a couple books that I have found really impactful. One of the first books that I think I read that allowed me to go down the road of mindfulness and meditation is, the author is Philip Moffitt, and the title is From Chaos to Clarity, I believe. I could be getting the title wrong, so I apologize.
Yeah.
That's one. And then The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo, which is like a daily meditative reader. Love that. And I often will just open to the page of the day and find inspiration or motivation from that. And then another that's similar in style, where it's like a daily reading, is called Journey to the Heart by Melody Beattie.
Oh, yeah.
And those three are really some of my favorites and most impactful, I would say.
Oh, great. I love that. Sara, where can people go to find out more about you? What's your preferred places for destinations online to find you?
The mindfulmovement.com has everything that we offer, and we primarily live on YouTube. Excuse me. I have a Facebook and an Instagram page, but it's not very active. So YouTube is really where I spend most of my time.
Yeah. And it's The Mindful Movement. So make sure and put themindfulmovement.com, The Mindful Movement on YouTube. I think I've been getting more and more active on Insight Timer. I think you have a presence there too. I'm not sure how actively you're uploading new stuff there, but that's another nice app a lot of people are on. I think I've seen you there. And again, congratulations on the new book. It's called You Are Not Broken, a compassionate guide to uncovering inner wisdom and transforming your life with hypnotherapy. Sara Raymond, I really appreciate you being here. It's great to meet you after years of hearing your voice. And
nice to meet you too. Thank you.
And folks, if you want to hear more of these interviews or just other inspiring stuff, make sure wherever you're listening to this on my podcast, watching on YouTube, make sure and subscribe, follow, share, comment, the whole list of things. Until next time, so long for now.